I guess the penthouse finally has a real purpose. Hosting Emily's wedding instead of wasting away on you. My mother said it into a microphone. The ballroom at the Hyatt Regency downtown held 84 guests that night. Crystal chandeliers hummed softly above us. Silverware paused mid-air. Someone near the back laughed, sharp and quick, then stopped when no one joined in. My sister Emily kept smiling, chin lifted, as if it had all been rehearsed. I set my glass down. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 34 years old. The penthouse she was talking about was legally mine. Purchased outright. No co-signers. No loans. They didn't know that yet, and what happened next would make sure they never forgot it. I grew up in a house where everything had a place, and none of it was mine. My father, Richard Bennett, believed in structure. Dark suits, pressed collars, receipts filed by month in a metal cabinet that smelled faintly of dust and printer ink. He ran a mid-sized logistics company outside Chicago. Regional contracts, trucking routes, warehouse leases. Numbers defined him. Profit margins, loss thresholds. He spoke in figures even at dinner. My mother, Diane, handled appearances. Holiday cards printed on thick linen stock. Table settings with exact spacing between forks. She corrected posture in public and tone in private. "We don't air things," she would say, adjusting a napkin that didn't need adjusting. Emily was 3 years younger than me. Blonde, soft-spoken, always positioned half a step closer to our parents than I was. She learned early how to nod at the right moment, how to agree without being asked. By the time she was 22, she had mastered the kind of smile that made people offer things to her. I left at 18 Boston, Northeastern University, a shared dorm with thin walls and a radiator that clanged at night. I worked 2 campus jobs, library desk and early morning coffee shift, stacking textbooks beside the register between orders. I tracked every expense in a spreadsheet down to the dollar. Tuition, rent, groceries, $43, 17 for a week once. I remember because it was the first time I had to choose between fresh produce and laundry detergent. My parents sent nothing, not because they couldn't, because they believed I needed to learn independence the hard way. Those were my father's words. He said once over the phone, his voice flat, like he was explaining a policy. Emily stayed home, community college for a year, then transferred to a private university closer to Chicago. My parents paid for everything. Tuition. A leased Audi A4 by her second semester. When I visited during winter break, the car was parked in the driveway like a statement. After graduation, I didn't go back. I moved to Seattle with 2 suitcases and a job offer from a mid-tier tech firm. Entry-level operations, long hours, fluorescent lighting that buzzed above rows of gray cubicles. I learned fast, stayed late, said yes to projects no one else wanted. Within 4 years, I moved into management. Within 7, I was running a division that handled contracts worth over $12 million annually. I bought the penthouse at 32, top floor, corner unit, floor-to-ceiling windows facing Elliott Bay, 1,850 square feet, concrete and glass and quiet. The kind of quiet you don't notice until you've lived without it. The purchase price was $1.28 million. I wired the full amount myself. No mortgage. The first night I slept there, the air smelled faintly of new paint and cedar from the built-in cabinets. I remember standing barefoot on the hardwood floor, looking out at the water, realizing no one could take that space from me. I didn't tell my parents right away. When I did, my mother said, "That's practical," in a tone that suggested otherwise. My father asked about property taxes before he asked how I was. Emily asked if she could visit. She came in early spring, wore a cream-colored coat, and walked through the place slowly, fingertips raising the kitchen island, the glass railing, the edge of the master bedroom door. She took photos, a lot of them, angles that framed the skyline behind her. "This would be perfect for an event," she said at one point, standing in the living room, her reflection faint in the windows. I didn't respond. A year later, she got engaged. His name was Tyler Brooks, finance, confident in a way that felt practiced. They planned the wedding quickly. 9 months from proposal to date, venue tours, caterers, guest lists. I stayed out of it until the invitations went out. Reception location to be announced, printed in small italic script at the bottom. I noticed it, folded the card, set it aside. 2 weeks later, my mother called. Her voice was bright, controlled. "We've decided on the perfect place for Emily's reception," she said. I already knew what she was going to say. She just hadn't told me yet. My mother didn't ask, she informed. "It's intimate," she said over the phone, her voice crisp, like she was reading off a finalized itinerary. "Only 42 guests for the reception. Immediate family and close friends. It will feel exclusive." I stood in my kitchen, one hand resting on the cool quartz countertop, looking out at the gray water below. "And the location?" I asked, a small pause. "Then, your place, Claire. The penthouse. It's perfect," she said, perfect the way she always did when she had already made a decision. I didn't answer right away. "I'm not hosting a wedding reception," I said finally. Another pause, longer this time. "Well," she said, tone shifting, "it's not really hosting. It's contributing. This is your sister's wedding." The word contributing sat there, carefully chosen. "I'm not comfortable with that," I said. Silence on the line, then a soft exhale. "Claire, don't make this difficult." That was the first time. The second time was in person. They flew out 2 weeks later. My parents and Emily. Late afternoon flight. I picked them up from SeaTac because my mother insisted rideshare drivers never understand directions properly. In the car, Emily talked about centerpieces, white orchids, glass cylinders, floating candles. "Very clean," she said. "Very modern. It'll match your place perfectly." I kept my eyes on the road. When we reached the building, the lobby smelled faintly of lemon polish. The concierge nodded as we passed. My mother took in the marble floors, the muted lighting, the quiet. Approval, unspoken but visible. Upstairs, Emily moved through the penthouse like she had the year before. Slower this time. More deliberate. This is exactly what I pictured, she said, standing in the living room, looking out at the bay. We can set the dining tables here. Maybe 6 tables of 7, that's 42. It fits. It doesn't, I said. She turned, smiling, like she thought I was joking. It does, she said lightly. We measured similar layouts at 2 venues. I'm not hosting the reception, I repeated. My mother set her handbag down on the kitchen island with a soft thud. Claire, she said, her voice dropping, we're not asking for something unreasonable. Do you know how much venues cost right now? 42 guests, full service. You're looking at $28,000 minimum. That's just the base package. My father stepped closer, hands in his coat pockets. It's a practical solution, he said. You already own the space. No rental fee. We'd handle catering. I looked at him. You'd handle catering, I said. In my home. It's for one night, he replied. Emily walked toward me, her heels soft against the hardwood. It would mean a lot to me, she said, lowering her voice, as if that made it more sincere. This is my wedding. I watched her for a moment. The way her expression held steady. The way she didn't ask, not really. She expected. No, I said. The word landed flat. My mother's jaw tightened. After everything we've done for you, she said. I almost asked what that was. Instead, I stayed quiet. Dinner that night was at a restaurant 2 blocks away. White tablecloths, dim lighting, the kind of place where conversations stay low. My mother ordered for the table sea bass, filet mignon, a bottle of red wine priced at $187. Halfway through the meal, she brought it up again. We need to finalize the reception details this week, she said, cutting into her steak with precise movements. Invitations are already out. They say location to be announced, I said. Exactly, she replied. We'll announce it once everything is confirmed. It's not confirmed, I said. My father set his fork down. Claire, he said, his tone even. You're being unnecessarily rigid. I didn't respond. Emily leaned forward slightly. Why are you making this a problem? She asked. It's just a space. You'll barely notice we're there. Just a space. I looked at her hands, manicured, resting lightly on the table. It's not available, I said. My mother let out a small, controlled laugh. You live alone, she said. What exactly is occupying 1,850 square feet that can't be moved for one evening? A couple at the next table glanced over. I kept my voice level. I said no. The rest of the dinner passed in tight silence, the kind that presses in on your ears. Back at the penthouse, my mother stood near the windows, looking out at the city lights. You're going to regret this, she said, without turning around. I didn't answer. The next morning, I left early for work. When I came back that evening, they were already gone. Their flight had been at noon. On the kitchen island, there was a folder. Inside were printed floor plans of my penthouse, measurements, table placements, notes in my mother's handwriting. Bar here, photo backdrop, gift table. At the bottom of one page, in blue ink, a single line, confirm with Claire soon. They hadn't waited for confirmation. They were planning around my refusal. That was when I understood this wasn't a request. It was a decision they expected me to accept. The breaking point came 3 days later, at 7:12 p.m., while I was standing in line at a grocery store, holding a carton of eggs and a receipt for $64.80. My phone buzzed. A group message. Emily, my mother, my father. A photo attachment loaded slowly. When it sharpened, I recognized the space immediately. My living room, my windows, the skyline behind it, except it wasn't empty. There were tables, white linens, glass cylinders with floating candles, place settings arranged in precise rows. A mock-up. Final layout approved, my mother wrote beneath it. Emily followed with, it looks perfect. Thank you again, Claire. This means everything to me. My father added a single line. We'll coordinate vendor access next week. I read it twice, then once more. They hadn't just ignored my answer. They had replaced it. Around me, the checkout scanner beeped in steady intervals. Plastic bags rustled. Someone behind me cleared their throat. I put the eggs on the counter. Paper or plastic? The cashier asked. Paper, I said. My voice sounded normal. I paid $64.83. Exact change. I walked to my car, set the bag on the passenger seat, and closed the door with a quiet, solid click. Then I sat there for a moment, still. No calls, no messages, no arguments, just a clean line forming in my head. If they were going to make decisions about something that belonged to me, without me, then I would respond the same way, not with noise, with structure. I picked up my phone, and I made one call. I called at 7:28 p.m. Not my parents, not Emily. I called Daniel Mercer. He had been my grandmother's attorney for over 20 years. Estate planning, trusts, property law. The kind of man who spoke slowly, wrote everything down, and never missed a deadline. I had met him twice before, once at my grandmother's house in Connecticut, once at her funeral. He answered on the third ring. Mercer. It's Claire Bennett, I said. Margaret Bennett's granddaughter. A brief pause, papers shifting in the background. Yes, he said. I remember. How can I help you, Claire? I stepped out onto the balcony. The air was cold, sharp against my face. Below, traffic moved in steady lines, red and white lights threading through the city. I need to understand exactly what my parents have access to, I said. Legally. Another pause. Shorter this time, more focused. What makes you ask that? He said. They're making plans involving my property, I said. Without my consent. Your Seattle residence, he asked. Yes. Owned solely by you. Yes. No liens, no cosigners, no shared title, none. I heard a pen click. Then they have no authority over it, he said. Not directly. Not directly, I repeated. There was a faint shift in his tone. Claire, he said, when your grandmother passed, she established a trust. You're aware of that? I am, I said. What you may not be fully aware of is how it's structured. I leaned against the railing, the metal cool under my hands. Explain it to me, I said. He did. The Margaret Bennett Family Trust held multiple assets, a house in Connecticut, 2 investment accounts totaling $2.4 million, and a clause tied specifically to residential property owned by direct descendants. My name was listed, so were my parents and Emily's. The clause is conditional, Daniel said. It allows temporary use of a property for family events, weddings, funerals, major gatherings, but only with the explicit written consent of the property owner. Without that consent, any attempt to claim access is considered a breach of trust. I closed my eyes for a second. They don't have my consent, I said. I assumed as much, he replied. And if they act like they do, I asked. They would be in violation, he said. Which triggers enforcement? What does enforcement look like? I asked. Paper shifted again. A page turning. It allows the trustee to intervene, he said. Immediately. Assets can be frozen. Distributions paused. In extreme cases, beneficiaries can be removed. I let that sit. Who's the trustee? I asked. You are, he said. Primary. Effective immediately upon your grandmother's passing. I hadn't known that. There was a quiet in my chest that wasn't relief. It was clarity. And my parents? I asked. Secondary beneficiaries, he said, with no control over trust decisions. And Emily? The same. I looked out at the water, the lights reflecting in broken lines. They're planning to use my penthouse for her wedding reception, I said. They've already designed the layout, sent invitations without a location. They're expecting me to agree. Daniel didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice was precise. Do you want them to use your property? No, I said. Then we proceed accordingly, he said. How? I asked. We document your refusal, he said, formally, in writing. We notify all involved parties, and we prepare enforcement in case they ignore it. I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. Do it, I said. I'll draft the notice tonight, he replied. You'll have it in your inbox within the hour. Read it carefully, sign it, return it. And then? I asked. And then, he said, we wait to see if they respect it. I already knew the answer to that. They won't, I said. No, he agreed. They usually don't. I ended the call at 7:46 p.m. Inside, the penthouse was quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't shift. I opened my laptop. At 8:12 p.m., the email came through subject line. Formal notice of denial. Property use, 6 pages. Clean-sized language. I read every line. At the bottom, there was a space for my signature. I didn't hesitate. At 8:19 p.m., I signed it. At 8:21 p.m., I sent it back. Daniel replied at 8:23, received. We'll take it from here. I closed the laptop. Then I picked up my phone and opened the group message. The mock-up was still there. White linens, glass cylinders, my face rearranged without me. I typed one sentence. Check your email. I sent it at 8:25 p.m. 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. No one replied. They were reading it, and for the first time since this started, they were no longer in control. The reception was scheduled for Saturday at 6 p.m. At 5:42, the elevator doors opened onto my floor. I was already inside the penthouse. The lights were on, but dimmed. The air smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and the cedar cabinets along the wall. The dining area was empty. No tables, no linens, no candles, exactly as it should be. Voices spilled into the hallway first, then footsteps, heels on polished concrete, the soft clatter of trays. My mother entered without knocking. She stopped when she saw the room. Behind her, Emily stepped in, already in her reception dress. Ivory satin, fitted, the fabric catching the light with every movement. Tyler followed, adjusting his cufflinks, his expression tight. And behind them, 6 staff members from a catering company wheeled in carts, silver chafing dishes, stacked plates, glassware wrapped in white cloth. 42 guests were downstairs in the lobby, according to the message Emily had sent at 5:18. We're ready. My mother looked at the empty space again, then at me. Where is everything? She asked. Her voice was controlled. Careful. Nowhere, I said. A beat of silence. Emily's smile didn't drop, but it thinned. Claire, she said, stepping forward, lowering her voice. This isn't funny. The guests are already here. I know, I said. My father moved past them, scanning the room like he was looking for something hidden. The vendors are scheduled, he said. They have a contract. With you, I said. Not with me. My mother set her bag down harder than usual. We sent out the announcement this morning, she said. The address, the timing. People have flown in. This is happening. No, I said just that one word. Flat, the lead caterer, a man in his 50s with a clipboard, cleared his throat softly. Mom, he said, looking between us. We were told to set up for 42. We have a timeline. You don't have access to this property, I said, turning to him. There's no signed agreement from me. He hesitated. My mother stepped in, her tone sharpening. She's the owner, she said quickly, as if that settled it. It's fine. Go ahead and start with the tables. No, I said again. The room held still. Then my phone buzzed. 6:03 p.m. A call from Daniel Mercer. I answered. They've arrived, I said. I assumed they would, he replied. His voice was calm, measured. Put me on speaker. I did. This is Daniel Mercer, he said, his voice carrying cleanly through the room. Attorney for the Margaret Bennett Family Trust. My mother's posture shifted just slightly. Mr. Mercer, she said, forcing a polite tone. This is a private family matter. It became a legal matter at 8:25 p.m. 3 days ago, he replied. When formal notice of denial was issued and acknowledged, my father's jaw tightened. We didn't acknowledge anything, he said. You opened the email at 8:31 p.m., Daniel said. Both of you. We have confirmation. Silence. Emily's fingers tightened tightened around the fabric of her dress. "This is my wedding," she said, her voice quieter now. "You're really doing this right now?" I looked at her. "You did this," I said. Daniel continued, his tone unchanged. "Any attempt to use this property without the owner's written consent constitutes a breach of the trust," he said. "Under Section 4.2, enforcement is immediate." My mother took a step forward. "Enforcement?" she repeated. "Over a family event?" "Yes," he said. "As of 5:55 p.m., all trust distributions to secondary beneficiaries have been frozen." My father blinked once. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means access to the investment accounts is suspended," Daniel said, effective immediately. "Approximately $2.4 million. The number settled into the room like weight. My mother's expression changed first. "That's temporary," she said quickly. "You can't just—" "It will remain in effect pending review," he said. "Additionally, a formal inquiry into attempted unauthorized use of a protected asset has been opened." Emily looked between them. "Mom," she said, her voice unsteady now. "What does that mean?" My father didn't answer. Daniel did. "It means there are consequences," he said. "Financial and legal." The caterer shifted again, lowering his clipboard. "Sir," he said quietly to my father, "we're going to need direction. We can't proceed without clear authorization." There was a long pause. 42 guests were still downstairs, waiting. My mother looked at me. For a moment, the control was gone, not replaced with anger, just absence. "You would do this," she said. "Not a question." I didn't raise my voice. "You tried to take something that isn't yours," I said, "and you planned it like I wouldn't notice." Emily's eyes were wet now, but she didn't cry. "This was supposed to be perfect," she said. "It still can be," I replied, "just not here." Daniel spoke one last time. "We recommend relocating your event immediately," he said. "Any further attempt to access the property will escalate the matter." No one moved for a few seconds. Then the caterer nodded once, to no one in particular. "We'll start packing up," he said. The sound of metal lids closing echoed softly in the room. One by one, the carts turned. My father stepped back. My mother picked up her bag without looking at me. Emily stood there for a second longer, then followed them out. At 6:17 p.m., the elevator doors closed. The hallway went quiet again. Inside, nothing had changed. The space was still mine. And for the first time that night, everyone else understood that. The reception ended up at a hotel 10 blocks south, a last-minute booking. Ballroom B beige carpet, low ceilings, fluorescent lighting that flattened everything it touched. They managed to seat 39 of the original 42 guests. 3 didn't make a move. I know because Emily's sent a message at 7:08 p.m. running behind. New location attached. No one sent photos after. I heard about it later. Not from them. From a cousin who texted me 2 days after the wedding. "Food was late," she wrote. "No speeches. Everyone left early." I didn't respond. At 9:14 a.m. the following Monday, Daniel sent an update subject. Enforcement status. The trust distributions remained frozen. My parents had attempted to contact a financial advisor tied to the investment accounts at 7:32 p.m. on Saturday. The request had been denied, logged, time-stamped. A formal review had begun. There was also a note about potential removal of beneficiary privileges pending outcome. I read it once, then I archived it. My mother called that afternoon. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was 42 seconds long. "Claire, this has gone too far," she said, her voice tight but measured. "You've made your point. We need to resolve this. Call me back." I didn't. My father didn't call. Emily sent a single text on Wednesday. "I hope you're happy." I looked at it for a moment. Then I muted the conversation. 2 weeks later, I received a certified letter. Return address: Daniel Mercer. Inside was a summary of the review findings. Clear, structured, final. My parents had knowingly attempted to bypass the consent requirement outlined in Section 4.2 of the trust. The documentation, the floor plans, the vendor coordination, the announcement, established intent. As a result, their access to future trust distributions would remain suspended for an indefinite period. Emily's status remained unchanged. Secondary beneficiary. No control. No access without conditions. There was a final line at the bottom. "All enforcement actions have been executed in accordance with the trust's provisions." I folded the letter along its original crease, set it in a drawer. The penthouse was quiet that night, same as always. The city moved outside the windows. Cars, lights, the low hum of distant traffic. Inside, there was nothing out of place. No tables, no linens, no evidence that anything had almost happened there. A week later, I changed the building access code, not because I thought they would come back, because I preferred certainty. After that, the calls stopped. No more voicemails, no more messages, just silence. Clean, uninterrupted, exactly the way I had built it. There's a specific kind of quiet you only notice after it's been broken. It isn't empty, it's defined. I learned that standing in a space I paid for, defended, and kept exactly as it was meant to be. No negotiation, no adjustment, just a clear line that held. People talk about family like it's ownership, like proximity gives permission, like history overrides boundaries. It doesn't. What happened that night wasn't loud. There were no raised voices, no scenes that would make a story easier to tell, just a series of decisions, documented, enforced, and a result that didn't need explanation. I didn't lose anything. I kept what was mine, and they finally understood the difference.